Thought the Pixel 8 Pro was a perfect phone, but it's got a big problem that seemingly nobody's talking about. So whenever anybody, myself included, talks about a Pixel, like the first thing is like camera, and then like a little bit more camera. And I'm gonna get to that. But now that the phone is $100 more expensive at $1,000, that is a lot of money. And when you take your phone out of the box, I think for that price premium, you should like feel something with it. You should feel good. You should almost feel a connection because it's probably gonna be in your hand quite a bit. Now looking at the design, this is a refinement of what came before it. But man, those refinements make a huge difference. I was talking to some of the guys here in the studio about it. This is definitely like an S year for the Pixel. I guess if the 6 was the real year, this would be an SS. But I think it's kind of the best version of the S year. The changes here add up to something really big. So the visor is still here. It looks slightly different. I love that it goes all the way around to the edges of the phone. I do wish though that the metal was kind of a matte instead. The back now is a kind of a frosty look feel instead of glossy. Also want to give Google credit for actually using a different color other than black or white or some version of taupe. We got blue, bay. It looks absolutely beautiful. And that's something that I've enjoyed with the phone. The colors look different. The phone looks different. The flat screen feels different. This phone feels every bit of $1,000 in your hand. Even just the weight, it's such a visceral thing. If you haven't held a Pixel 8 Pro, you can feel the difference between this and the 7 Pro. And when you turn the phone on, I was actually genuinely surprised by the 6.7-inch screen. So I say this all the time, I feel like a broken record, but I love a great screen, and I think Google brought their A game here with this one. I would actually go as far as to say it is of the same quality as Samsung displays, and they certainly make the best displays out there. The big difference though, I think, is how they've tuned the colors here, whether you're on adaptive or natural. The colors are a bit more muted. I prefer kind of the contrasty bright colors, but the screen here is awesome. And of course, all the high refresh rate stuff that you'd expect all the way down to 1, so you're always on display works. That's nothing new to the Pixel. It's just the best version of what they've done before. One thing that is definitely not the same from last year's phone is peak brightness. This is a 2400 nit peak brightness. Now, it's not gonna sustain that for a huge amount of time, but if you use your phone outside in direct sunlight, you can tell a difference how bright this thing gets. This is, at least to my eyes, the brightest phone I have ever used. And I've used the majority of major release phones that have come out over the past almost 15 years. If brightness matters to you, then don't even look at anything else. The Pixel 8 Pro is the way to go. If you use your phone outdoors all the time, Pixel 8 Pro is the way to go. I don't wanna say it's like eye-searingly bright, but you probably wanna put on some sunglasses when you use this thing. All right, so camera, right? That's the Pixel's jam. And when you've got a Pro phone, having Pro cameras seems to be like the logical step. And every company out there is trying to make the cameras in their phones as like professional as possible or as plus as possible, whatever they decide to call it. How you get there is, I think, where phone manufacturers take different paths. Some try to pack in like as many cameras as possible. Others, like Google, focus on software, and then like some more software on top of that, which I think is a secret sauce why the Pixel's always had a really good camera system. This year, Google took that software, added one more software, but also added some hardware to go with it. So this feels like magical technology fairy dust, but Magic Editor is bonkers. It lets you change almost everything in a photo. You can remove things from the background, adjust the lighting, and a ton of others. You can even move a subject somewhere else in the frame. If it's a person and the lighting's not right, it definitely looks like they're standing in front of a green screen, but you can do it, and that's awesome. And if you're taking photos of people, you can adjust the faces of those people in the photos to select the best one. Somebody's got 3 kids and I inevitably have somebody doing this in every picture. That feature alone is a really compelling reason to look at the Pixel 8 Pro. So from start to finish, Google is using AI and software to make the photo experience as good as it can be. That's their recipe. They put that thing in a pot and cooked it for years. But with the 8 Pro, they didn't just rely on that recipe. There's also really good hardware built in with this thing. So one of my biggest complaints with a lot of phones is that the main camera sensor is usually awesome, but the others are usually garbage. The Pixel is like the opposite of that. So you get 3 cameras. The main sensor is 50 megapixels, which is a nice high resolution, but the ultra-wide and 5x telephoto is also 48 megapixels, which is a resolution you expect from usually just the main camera on a lot of phones, and that's awesome. I could talk about how good the Pixel camera is, but I mean, you can just look at it for yourself. Everything about Pixel photos is good. There's a reason good photos and Pixel tend to be synonymous. I don't want to be cliche to say this camera system is pixel perfect, but it's pretty darn close in every scenario. Low light looks great. Super bright sunlight looks great. Half in the sun, half in the shade looks great. Faces look great. Portrait mode, awesome job at cutout. And you add in all the magic eraser stuff, there's now almost no photo you can take with the Pixel that's not going to look some version of like the good to great scale. And usually it's going on the great side. And all of that is awesome, but it's not gonna stop with just photos though. I've been crazy impressed with what Google has done with video. And it's not true anymore that Android's lagging behind iPhone for video. That kind of got squashed a few years ago. But now what we're seeing is a lot of ways some of the Android phones even take leaps, in some instances above what Apple is doing. I can confidently say the Pixel 8 Pro, your video is going to look as good as your photos. Now, not in every instance, there's still some issues with highlights and how it's handling things, but for the majority of video and well-lit scenarios, it looks absolutely incredible. It's doing a much better job in low light. And if you just want to take videos with your phone, share them on social media, or even put them up on a TV or something, Pixel 8 Pro does a really good job. Now, I would not use this as like a replacement for like a cinema camera, but if you're just taking, again, casual video, Pixel 8 Pro is a beast. Last year brought us the Tensor G2, a second generation of Google's own SoC, and it was good. I don't think anybody was running to call it great. It ran okay, it started to slow down after time, it got warm when doing kind of some heavy video or heavy gaming on it. I wasn't overwhelmed with the G2, it was fine. It was seemed like a mid chip at best. The G3, at least in my now about 2 weeks or so of using the phone, Google brought it here. This feels fast. In video, the heat that I had with the G2 and the G1 are not there. I experienced no slowdown. This is a really fast, what appears to be a very efficient processor. Now, if that started to kind of wear over time, I don't know yet. And if I had to guess, the optimizations Google made with this chip are kind of why I like the phone so much. The processor's fast, again, doesn't overheat like it has in the past. And I'm guessing they're confident enough with what this chip can do. They're promising 7 years of OS and security updates for this phone. That is a ton. Now listen, Google is notorious for promising things and then killing them. They usually do deliver on what they promise. So if they're saying 7 years, you will get 7 years of updates for this phone. Now they might not offer that same thing for next year's Pixel, but at least for the 8 Pro, 7 years is pretty good. This phone will get an update in 2030, which is just absolutely nuts here. Also nuts, seems to be battery life so far. So it's a 5,050 milliamp hour battery, and again, just 2 weeks. And my test is, I'm real heavy in social media and video. And I know third-party optimization really determines the battery life. So third-party apps that I use might not be optimized versus the one you use, so our battery lives could be way different. In my usage though, it's been pretty good. I can get to the end of the day between 25 and 30%, which is kind of my threshold for a really good battery. That gives me just a big buffer to use it a little bit more if I need to on those heavy days. Battery life does not appear to be a concern at all. Every few years, Google adds something new to a Pixel line. That is something you don't see on really any other phone. There's a temperature sensor on this right here, and it works. It's not gonna work on the human body. It's gotta be certified for that, but if you wanna measure temperature of a ceramic mug, of wood, of someone through clothing, that does work. Now, your guess is as good as mine as to why this here. If I was gonna imagine, this is probably something around 2020, seemed like a really good idea, and they just kind of put it in here. Maybe there's something, a larger picture where it's gonna play into something that we don't know yet. Probably use it once and forget about it. From every angle that you look at the Pixel 8 Pro, this is finally the Pixel without compromise. It's the first Pixel I can recommend without adding any caveats. But the problem with the Pixel 8 Pro isn't the phone itself, it's that the Pixel Fold exists. The phone itself is incredible, but is it really the top end there? Now you've got the Pixel Fold, which does almost everything I've talked about incredibly well. The camera system is not as good. It's got the Tensor G2 instead of G3, but it folds. It adds more functionality, it adds larger screens. The outer display is absolutely incredible. You can't just recommend the Pixel 8 Pro anymore as the best Pixel. I think that crown still goes to the Pixel Fold. And as much as I love the 8 Pro, and I really do, I just have a soft spot in my heart for foldables. If that's not your jam, the Pixel 8 Pro is amongst the best phones ever made. And across the entire lineup of Pixel phones, whichever one you go for, you're getting great software that Google's always been known for. And it feels like this is the plan Google has always had, and it finally come to fruition. And if you want a Pixel, this is the best candy bar one to buy of all time.